Hi, I am live. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you're from. Just hold on one second. Um, Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. It is Wednesday, yes, and I am so happy to be back talking to you guys today, just chatting. It's midweek. I hope you guys are having a good week. How was your Tuesday? Um, also realized that Tuesday actually fell on a Tuesday. I was like, oh, as the twos are on point. I hope whatever constellation that we are in now, that it's all about growth and it's all about progress for each and every one of us, and that we are going to move forward, being the best, fully involved version of ourselves by the end of 2022. And you know what? It's all about how we decide we're going to end the year. So let's get started. So today, I was thinking about what I want to talk about this with you this week. And as we go through different phases in our lives, we have sorry, we have habits. And so I was thinking about this because for me, and I'm sure for some of you, there are things that you probably would love to be able to shake, some habits that you know are not serving you where you are, where you want to go, what you want to do with your life, whether it's in health, whether it's finances, whether it's business, whether it's with at your job. And there are things that our habits really affect the way we live our lives. So some habits are really good. Most of us has mostly good habits. I guess that's why we're not in jail or something. But there are those habits that we know inherently that it's not good for us, and unfortunately they're hard to break. So why are bad habits so hard to break? So today I really want to discuss the habits, because it's either can be, as I said before, it can be either good or they can be bad. They can either help or they can either hinder your life. But before we get into the main thing on the topic, is I just want to say, as I put in the description, our entire life, daily life, is pretty much a habit, right? But what we need to understand is that we need to focus on the ones that move us forward to the life that we want to live, not the ones that hurt and hamper us. Most of us have some story, I'm sure, to tell about some difficult habit that we've either broken or it's difficult to break. So you're not in bad company. We're all in the same company. Most of us actually try to create um, change, and we really, really want to most of the times, but mostly we're trying to do so using tools, like using our brain, like using the wrong part of your brain to try and change the habit. So I will discuss some ways later on, the way how I teach people how to change habits, right? And so, why are habits so hard to break, right? Why are they so hard to break? And before before we go any further, can somebody drop a habit in the chat for me? I mean, I can see it. You may not see it. If you want to do uh, StreamYard, you're going to have to put your name in and accept the changes. So drop one habit in here for me that you find it hard to break, and you've been, maybe something you've been working at for a while. So one habit that you want to change, that you've been finding it hard to break for a while. So that's one thing I want you to do for me. And so back to why a habit's so hard to change. Why are habits so hard to break? Why are bad habits, especially, because I don't know about you, but I find that good habits, you can easily fall into bad habits. Good habits sometimes, is there, but you can easily fall off of those. So one major reason I think that people try to have difficulty breaking bad habits is they're trying to use willpower. And I know from my experience, when I went through um, my weight loss journey, which obviously is a habit of, for guys who don't know, I weighed 280 pounds at one point in time. And I now weigh anything from 150 to 160. So I lost, my lowest weight, I lost 120 pounds. And that was because of habits that I had, poor eating habits, poor uh, uh, workout habits, and a very variety of things. But one of the things was, poor habits throughout my life, long time ago. So when you try to use willpower to break a habit, willpower is one part uses is from one part of the brain. It's from the conscious process. So it comes from a part of your mind that you rebel. Like people call it the reptilian brain part of your mind, where you're like, okay, this is too much for me. I'm not going to do it. So that is when you consciously start using. So because we use willpower is a conscious choice. So when you start using willpower, what happens is you wonder, you might do it for a little bit and it might work for a few days, but after that it's like doesn't work. So for example, when you got up this morning and you opened your eyes, did you say to yourself, okay, I am going to get out of bed and then I am going to go to the bathroom and then I'm going to shower, right? No, it happened automatically. You got out of bed, you went to the bathroom, did your business, you probably went, washed your hands, went to the kitchen, you put your coffee on, and then you went in the shower. And it's happened automatically without you actually analyzing the thought of doing it. And as we go through life, there's these things that we go through life on autopilot, right? And when we're going through life on autopilot, these are the habits. That's life. That's the habit that you do every day. So if you want to think about everything that you do on a regular basis, you that's not something that is either productive, right? All of us go through life on autopilot at some point in time. And that is okay. It is absolutely okay to get up in the morning, you have your same routine. Morning routines are good, evening routines are good. But if you want to create new things in your life, you've got to create new habits. Because some of the habits that we have, and I'm just as guilty as anybody else, some of the habits that we have do not serve us. But first, let's actually start exactly what is a habit. Because, people talk about, oh, I have good habits, I have bad habits. What exactly is a habit? If you have a comment, you can drop it in there. So a habit is an idea, right? That is like planted in the garden of your mind. It's planted in the garden of your subconscious mind. It's not the one that you consciously think about. That's why we do things on autopilot. The subconscious mind works on autopilot. That is why you can do auto suggestion and you can suggest to your subconscious mind to do things. It works on autopilot, right? And fed repeatedly with the same information, sufficient amount of time, you develop a habit. After a sufficient amount of time, the idea takes form, and without even conscious thought, you do it. And that's how habits are formed. Now, habits, as I said, certain habits that are really good for us, right? The habit that you shower, brush your teeth, all of these things, those are good habits that you do every day, right? So imagine, here's an example of how a habit is formed. Imagine you're about to clean your kitchen. You had a dinner party, and after gathering all the dishes and stuff like that, all the water, you put all the sudsy water and stuff like that, you start washing and you start rinsing. And a friend walks in and says, you know what? You should wash your plates before your silverware. before cleaning, and then after before cleaning your glasses. I don't know if many of you have that. So what do? You have a routine that you normally do to wash your dishes, and then you start feeling a little bit awkward now because, hey, have I been doing it wrong all this time? Right? And have I been washing my dishes out of order all that time? And why is that? Is because when you were young, or you found your new place, or when you decided to have this habit of how you wash your dishes, you saw your parents washing dishes a certain way, and that's how you wash your dishes. So now you've had the habit and you've formed the thought in your mind, which again was placed in because of repetition. Now that is a habit that is not even consciously placed by you. That is some habit that you saw all your life, right? And by watching and helping your sister, your brother, or your mom, or your dad, you did things in a specific order, and that planted that in your mind over time. And how you do dishes, how you wash your clothes, how you put your shoes on, how you tie your shoelace, right? So this is how habits are formed. And of course, you don't just get habits from doing productive things like cleaning your kitchen, right? You develop habits about what you eat, how you wear, how productive you are, how you do your job when you're going to work, how you set your desktop. And these are the habits that make you feel that you are in some kind of control. But when you try to change a habit that maybe is not serving you, that's not getting to you where you want to go, it becomes hard, and change is not easy, right? Unfortunately, it's not easy to change a habit that you've been doing all your life. But I want to give you some hope that it can be done. If you have a habit that you want to focus on, say, for example, we're going to start with something easy. You want to lose some weight. And you know for a fact, and I'm going to use myself an example. I know for a fact that I have a habit that if there is sweets in the house, like not so much like candy sweets, but if there is things like something like Oreo cookies, I love me some Oreo cookies. But I know that if there's some Oreo cookies in this house, I'm going to say that I'm not going to eat all of it. But it's like I get drawn to it. And I had a habit of doing that. I had a habit of always having things like that in the house until I realized that that's something that's not serving me to get to where I wanted to go, which was to lose weight. It was hard to go to the store because I always bought them. So it was hard to go to the store and not buy Oreo cookies. I had to break that habit. I had to break that habit. Another habit is maybe you got into the habit of, I don't know, having a glass of wine every night, and you know that was okay. Then you started having two, then you started having three, and you're like, how did I develop this thing? Right? As I said, not all habits are bad habits, but if you're trying to do something, you know that having a glass of wine every here and there, if you're trying to lose weight, is okay. But if you're seriously trying to lose some weight, having a glass of 2 or 3 glasses of wine every night is not the deal, right? You could go. So, how do you change because that is going to sabotage you. Same with my Oreo cookies. I knew that having cookies and ice cream and all that stuff was a habit that I had to break. So whatever habit that you have to break, you need so you can change it. But first, you need to start with something small, right? I didn't throw all my Oreo cookies in the trash can when I have it. So what I did was I did this action cue reward, cue action reward. So pretty much what I did was I will give myself a cue that it is, say, 6 p.m. And that's the time I would normally have an Oreo or a sleeve of Oreo. I'm going to be real with you guys. So what I would do, I would say, okay, tonight you don't have Oreos for 2 days, and then on the third day you can have three, right? So then what you do, you are it's almost like a delaying tactic, knowing that you're going to have it. And then on the day that I was supposed to have three, I'm going to say that, you know what, I'm going to have just one, right? So these are the things that you can do. Say, for example, you have a habit of maybe watching television until you fall asleep in front of the television every night, and it's affecting the way you feel the next day, right? Maybe you can do a thing. Maybe every night you're going to say, I'm going to watch television 15 minutes less. So you put a timer on your thing, and you watch it and then you go to bed. Eventually 15 minutes become 30 minutes, 30 minutes become 10, 5, and then eventually you're like, you know what, it's time to go to bed. I'm not going to watch watch that show anymore. Or if it's something to do with like eating, maybe you can avoid going to that places. Maybe if it makes you prompt you that you too much to drink, just avoid going to take another route home. Things you can do, certain things that can help you break a habit. Here's another strategy that sometimes work. So you might find it helpful to visualize yourself, like really visualize yourself in that tempting situation, and then replacing that with the habit that you want to have instead. So instead of visualizing yourself maybe having 3 glasses of wine, so I'm going to have just 1 glass. So visualize yourself sitting enjoying that 1 glass of wine, and then create this to change that way. Either way you do it, either approach you do, it will help you make the small changes. Tiny changes habits. When you try to change a habit right away and you just jump in, it's like trying to run a marathon and you've never trained for one. It will never work, right? Tiny habits change. So, and here is another strategy that involves replacing a bad habit with a good habit. And these are the ones that this is the one that works the most, right? For example, say for example, you used to hang around these I don't know, let's say it's John. And John hung around bars all day, went to his favorite establishment, looked around a bar, drank, got drunk every night. And what does he do? What does he do? I remember Bob Proctor was telling a story, as I said, Bob, Jack, whatever. And he told a story that he used to hang around bars all night, as I said before. Let's look at it that way. He told this story. And one day he looked around and he says, you know what? There's people in this bar, they are just drinking and they don't do anything. They just drink. Nobody talks to each other. He says, you know what? I don't think I'm going to come in here anymore. And I'm going to tell you a story, my own story. I remember I actually worked in Saudi Arabia. And when I was in Saudi Arabia, I used to buy Diet Coke by the cases. When I say by the case, I mean a whole case of Diet Coke. And I used to drink a lot of Diet Coke, right? And then one day I looked at myself and I'm like, you know that all of this artificial sugar is not good for you. Why are you drinking all of this Coke? So that one day I stopped. I said, you know what? I'm going to stop spending money on Coca-Cola, and I'm going to stop buying case of Coca-Cola. Instead, every time I think I wanted some Coca-Cola, I am going to drink water. And so this is replacing a bad habit that in my mind, I think it was a bad habit. For some people, it may not have been a bad habit drinking a Coca-Cola, 2 Coca-Colas every day, Diet Coke, thinking that it's healthy for you. But I felt that it was something that I didn't want to put in my body. So what I did was I replaced it with water. I replaced this in my mind a bad habit with a good habit, which is actual water. So I want you to understand that you don't try to take on too many habits at the same time, because it's not going to work. Take on small habits. Don't try to overhaul your whole system So what I did was I didn't throw out the Coca-Cola that I had. What I did was I said, I'm not going to buy anymore. And then I give some to my friends. And what I had left over, I started mixing it with the water. So I would water it down and water it down more. So eventually it was more water than Coke. And then I went straight to water. And that took me a few days. It didn't take me long. I didn't want it to be prolonged and projected. I just said, okay, I am just going to do it. And I did it. It's best if you don't try too many changes at the same time. That's what I'm saying. If you have more than one um, habit that you think that is that you might want to change, don't try and change everything at the same time. Pick one or two small habits and replace them with a good habit, and then it then becomes automatic. Because I want you to understand that if you don't replace a bad habit with a good habit, you're gonna it may not be the same habit, but you're gonna replace it with another bad habit. So you have to replace it with something that is going to take you to where you want to go, right? Until the behavior becomes automatic, just like before, it will make a tremendous difference in your life if you replace that bad habit with a good habit. So don't attempt to overhaul then your entire process. um don't just throw everything out, because and then you haven't replaced it with something else. So the thing is to replace a bad habit with a good habit until that process becomes automatic, one habit at a time. So I hope that made some sense. And if it does make some sense and you're listening to this on the replay, let me know. Hashtag replay. I will really appreciate it. So, what do you want to start doing? As I said, changing habit takes time, a fair amount of energy, and understanding what is going on. But I promise it's worth the effort if you want to change a bad habit. Because, yes, that's the reason of my topic. Bad habits are hard to change. That's why you have to go slowly, right? If you're ready, I want to tell you there are 5 things that you can do today. You can start right now to change the habits, and you can do it. This will cause permanent change. First thing you need to do is identify the habit. Think of that bad habit that you would love to break. Recognize that a bad habit, by evaluating your behavior, that's how you look at it. You evaluate the behavior, or you evaluate the results that you get in. If a few habits come to mind, pick one or two, no more, because the subconscious mind thrives on detail. So describe it in writing. I have done this and it works. Describe that bad habit in detail. Write it out. I am not, I eat such and such and such, I late night snacking, whatever. And write it out in detail. Write out what happens when it happens. Write it out in detail. Write down everything that's associated with I'm watching TV and I eat candy, or I eat chocolate and I eat popcorn, or I every Friday night I always have 2 extra glasses of wine and I don't like how it makes me feel on Saturday. Write it out in explicit detail. Then ask yourself, what's the polar opposite to that? What would you like to experience instead? Write that out in all the beautiful detail. Like, I'm not eating as much at night. I wake up in the morning, I feel so much better. I feel empowered now that I have taken control of my eating at night. How does it make you feel? Always put feelings in it. When you finish that, take the bad one, the unwanted behavior, rip it up, throw it away, shred it, right? It's important. It's symbolic, but when you do that, you're getting rid of it. Okay. The next thing you want to do is reinforce that positive behavior. So whatever you wrote out on that behavior, that good side that you want, read it over and over again, read it frequently until it becomes embedded in your subconscious mind that this is who you are, this is how your mind works, this is the habits that we have now. And that this is how your subconscious mind will not process that. You see, eventually, now that doesn't mean to say that the bad habit will go away right away, but eventually the more you read and the more you digest the good habit that you want to create, it's almost like the bad habit will get smaller and the good habits get bigger and bigger. So it's like almost that bad habit is dying and the other habit is you nourishing the good habit and you pretty much killing off the bad one. Okay, so just think of it like that. It's like having weeds in the garden, right? you you have roses and you have weeds, and then you do what you need to do to get rid of the weeds, and your roses are growing, but eventually the weeds are going to go away. So get to the root of the problem. Like, why am I eating this late at night? Am I under stress? Am I lonely? Am I bored? When you get to the root, you are actually looking at the underlying cause, the bottom of the habits, which is something called a paradigm. So you're looking at the bottom of the habit because your behavior is the result of the underlying cause. And you can do that by asking yourself different questions. I've often asked myself the same questions, like, about why do I do this? Why do I do this? I mean, I'm sure you've asked yourself things like that. Where did I get such an idea that this is a good, this is this good? What evidence do I have that make that thing that I was doing a good idea? And you know what? It's your life. Keep digging until you find the answer. And this is how you train your brain to work better. And then this is the beautiful part. Then you come in now and you reprogramming your mind. Now that you've then identified the underlying cause, now that you have identified the paradigm, you reprogram your mind. You do an affirmation that will help your mind with a new behavior. Maybe something that you wrote on the opposite side. Take it and says, "I am so happy that now I am not eating everything in sight at night," or "I'm so happy now that I can actually sit and enjoy one glass of wine." So do that and really get it into your mind. Do it for about 30 days. It really establishes a new way of thinking, and get that into your mind. So I hope that that made sense to you. And just as a recap, you want to identify the habit. That is important, right? You identify the habit, that's number one. You think of the opposite, that's number two. You then reinforce the positive behavior after you've written it out, right? Then you get to the root of the problem, and then you reprogram your mind. That way, you take the difficulty out of changing a bad habit. Okay, guys. So I hope that made sense. Let me know in the comments. Again, if you need help with any of that, and like how you write that out, I would be happy to hop on a call with you guys to go over what it may look like to change the habit and to rewrite and to reprogram your brain to for success, for the life that you want. And I just want to come on here next week. We're starting March. We're going to go a little bit more deeper into the mind. We're going to be talking about different mind shift changes, how you success in your mind, the magic in your mind, the power that you have in your mind to actually live the wonderful life that you want. So I'm looking forward to sharing information with you guys, sharing some information that what changed in my life and some other people's stories to help you live the best wonderful life that you can live. Again, if you need any kind of support or encouragement, please feel free to send me a message. And again, thank you for your love. Thank you for being here. Have a wonderful day. Take care, guys. Bye.